Hello and welcome to a new video tutorial on YouTube channel of tutorialspedia.com. In this video tutorial, I'm going to cover group actions in TIBCO BW5, and we will see that how we can use iterate, repeat until true, and repeat on error until true group actions in our BW5 process implementations. Let's look at the topics that are part of this video tutorial. First of all, we will have some theoretical explanation and overview of different type of BW group actions available in TIBCO BW5 when implementing BW processes. I will explain at high level what exactly these groups are, but we will not be covering all of the group actions. Rather, we will be focusing on a few of those to make sure that this video is not too lengthy. And then we will have a demonstration and we will have implementation of a process in TIBCO Designer. Where we will see how we can utilize the power of TIBCO for implementing these type of group actions. All right, so now let's jump into the implementation, and I will switch towards TIBCO Designer, where I will first explain what exactly these BW group actions are, and then we will demonstrate. Please note that this video tutorial is intended for those who are either beginners or at intermediate level. If you are an expert or if you have a good knowledge of how to implement BW processes, you might have fair idea and knowledge of these groups already. But if just you want to refresh your knowledge, or if you are new, then this video will be helpful for you. If you are already an expert and you know all these things, I have many other videos in this channel that you can go around and you can learn many things, and I'm sure there will be something for your knowledge in those videos. Additionally, you can visit tutorialspedia.com website as well, where we have plenty of tutorials on various topics related to TIBCO, MuleSoft, and various other related integration technologies. So without further ado, let's now jump into the implementation part. So I have already created a project, which is a blank project in TIBCO Designer, and I have named it as Group Actions. So inside this project, we are going to start implementation of a sample process, which will be covering different type of group actions. In real implementation scenarios, whenever you are developing your TIBCO BW based projects in TIBCO Designer, you always follow the best practices for creating different type of folders and placing all of the resources and uh, all of the items that are part of your project into proper hierarchical structure. But in this case, just to keep things simple, I'm not going to create any folders, and I'm going to create everything directly in the main folder. So I'll just right click, and in the add resources, I'll go to process, and I'm going to create a new process definition. Let's rename this process to something meaningful. I will name it as group action demo, and I'll apply. So once we have created the process, we have start and end activity, and now in between in this canvas, we are going to do the implementation. So in order to demonstrate different type of groups, let me first explain to you what exactly are different type of group actions. And for that purpose, I have just added a group. Right now, if you see, it is a blank group. There is nothing inside, and there is no activity that has been added inside the group. But I will first explain, and then we will proceed with adding different type of activities within the group and demonstrate the things. So if you see this drop down for the group action, we see that we have multiple group actions available as part of this drop down, and we are going to play around with the first three: iterate, repeat until true, and repeat on error until true. So let me first explain to you at a high level what exactly these group actions are. So iterate, what happens is that whenever you have a collection. For example, you have a JSON or you have an XML which contains multiple elements, and you want to iterate one by one on all of those elements from within that collection. In that scenario, you will go with this iterate option. So what this iterate will do is that it will iterate on that collection, and in every iteration you will get some specific element out of that collection, and then you can do whatever and play around, and whatever business logic you want to implement, whatever activities you want to perform for that particular element, you can do. and it will continue till the time all of the elements from the collection have been iterated. So we will demonstrate this iterate action, group action, in a few moments. And if you see the second one, which is repeat until true. So this group action is useful whenever you want to iterate, but you want to limit your iterations, or you want to continue your group until a specific condition has been true. For example, maybe you are iterating, you are continuously applying certain actions, and some specific condition, once it gets true, then you just want to stop. Maybe you're calling some external service, and once this external service returns some specific result, which is an exit condition for you, then you will stop this action, and then your processing will go out of this group, and you will be proceeding with the subsequent activities in your process. There can be some other scenarios. For example, you can implement that. For the simplicity, what I will implement here is that we will add a condition that when certain time happens, for example, current minute, we will take current date time, and from that we will take the current minute. So if it reaches to some specific number, if that condition gets true, we will just exit the group. So that will be just a sample implementation. But in real scenario, maybe you are integrating with some external service, some external application, and based on the results that you get from that external service or application, you might have an exit condition through which you will be exiting the group. And then there is another very powerful group action, which is repeat on error until true. So in case within the group you have multiple activities, and some certain activity is failing, what the normal behavior is that your processing will exit the group, and if you're catching that exception, that will go to the catch, and then it will be subsequent activities after the catch will be executed, and the process will end. And if there is no catch, and if you are not catching the exception, then the process will simply abort. But in certain scenarios, you might need a retry mechanism where you want to repeat an error until true. So maybe you want to, let's suppose you are trying to call some external service, and you are getting timeout or some sort of error on the network. So what you want is that before you exit or before you abort the process, you want to retry at least 3 times. Just an example. So in this type of scenario, this repeat an error until true comes handy, and it serves the purpose. So now that we have explained at a high level what exactly these three group actions are, we can proceed and demonstrate how they work. I'm not covering this transaction, critical section, pick first, while true, and if group actions in this video, but you will find some tutorials on my website tutorialspedia.com, where you will know how exactly these transactions, critical sections are used. So you can go through on this. All right, so now we have this process. So let's start implementation of the first scenario where we are going to iterate on certain elements within an XML. So in order to do that, first thing that we need is that we need an XML with multiple nested elements. For that purpose, we need to create a schema first, and based on the schema, we will create the XML. So a simple solution and a very good power of TIBCO that comes into practice in this case is that we have a very powerful option of using XML instance, and from that instance, we can directly create the XML. So in XML tool, I will choose instance. So let's give it some name. I will name it as user instance. But if you see here, if I double click, it gives me the option of set schema. So it means that first I need to create a schema. So I'm going to create a schema here. So let's create a new schema, add resources, and in the XML tool, we will choose schema. So let's rename it to user schema. I have created another video where I've explained how we can create schemas, complex XML schemas in TIBCO BW5 and BW6. You can refer to that video as well. That will be also helpful for you. But in this case, I will just create a simple schema. So in the root element, I will name it as users, and it has content as elements. And I'm going to add in the content model user, and this user doesn't exist, so I will globally define it. You can define it locally as well. And This again will be after in the content we will change it to elements, because this user will have multiple elements, which are user id, user name, and user status, just example. And we will locally define these elements. And let's change this user id to integer, and let's keep username and status as strings. And user we want to be repeatable, so I will just click add steric, which will be making it repeatable optional sequence. So now we have our schema created, which has users. Within users we have multiple users, and each user has user id, username, and user status. Pretty simple. So let's apply it, and now go to the instance. So in the instance, I'm going to click on this set schema, and I'll choose the user schema, and I will choose users, which is the root element for this schema, and I'll click on OK. Now I have to add users because it's optional, so it by default doesn't show, so you have to click on this. So let's add the value. So with XML instance, what I'm doing is that I'm going to create a sample XML based on the XSD that we just defined. So let's give user ID as 1, username as Expedia, and user status as active. We have to add multiple, so we will click on this user and we will define another user. So let's define it as user ID 2 and username as sample user and user status as suspended. And let me add another one, which will be the third user in this XML, and this user will be having ID, let's add 33, username ABC, and user status as uh, let's add this one as also as active. Okay, so we will click on apply, and if we go to the source, we can see that we have an XML which contains 3 users. So we have users, within that we have first user, second user, and third user. Okay, so this XML that gets created with XML instance will be available within the project. So if I go to a project, and in the project setting I can see the path. So it is in C in my local machine and C test, and within that it's in the group actions. So this means that if we have to access this XML, we can access it like this. Okay, so now I'm going to start the implementation. So what I will do is that in this process, in order to iterate, I need to first read the content of this file. So I'll go to file, and from the file palette I will choose this read file. Okay, so we will first read the file, and in the read file I need to choose it as text, and in the input I need to provide the path of the file. So the path is, as I told you before, inside the project, so it is C test, the project name is group actions, and the file name will be the same as the name of the instance, which is user instance.xml. So this is the file that we want to read, and once we read the file, after that what I want to do is that I want to parse, because I need to iterate on the elements. So for that purpose we first need to parse it. So I will go to add resources. In the XML activities I will choose parse XML. So let me now choose the detailed configurations for this parse XML. In the input style I'm going to choose text, and in the input I will just put the content from the read file. So file content will be mapped to the XML string, and then in the output editor, by clicking on this plus, I'm going to refer to the XML schema. So I will choose XML element reference, and then using this binocular I'm going to select schema. I'll choose user schema and users, which is the root element. Okay, so if you see here, the output, potential output once it goes fine, will be multiple users with the user ID, username, and user status. Okay, so now we will go to the group, and in the group actions we are going to choose iterate. So if you choose iterate, now it asks you for the index name. Let's just give it I, and in a variable list we will select the users. So in this case, we will choose the output of parse XML and since we need repeating, so we will choose user. Okay, so in the iteration element, so every time it's iterate, the current value from within the iterated element will be stored in this element. So I will use current dash user. So this current user will be containing the details of the current user being iterated. Okay. So now once we have done this, inside this iteration, we have to add certain activities. So what I will do is that inside, I will just add write file activity and I'll be writing the content to some file. So I'll go to file, I will choose write file. Let me add it inside. And now what we will do is that based on the ID, we will be writing the name. So in the write file, I will choose, let's choose write as text. We will not append it, and create non-existing directories. In case a directory does not exist, it will create. In the file name, we will be using c:/test slash. Okay, let me concatenate. So what I will do is that based on the current user ID, we will create the file name. So concat, and in the test user, and I will be concatenating the user ID .txt. Okay, so current user was not showing before, so I will choose user ID. Okay, so it will be C inside the test folder, it will be user, and then it will be concatenating user ID and then .txt. Okay, so now the content will be whatever the value in the current user. I want to just uh, put the entire value, so I will choose render XML function, render dash XML. So it will take the entire data and it will render as an XML. And let me take the current user and let's click on fix so that it adds the namespaces reference, and we'll click on apply. So now the current whatever is the current user, the data from that current user's iterated element will be written into the file. Okay, pretty much simple. Let's validate this, and if we try to run it now, we can see that it has completed. So let's first verify the output of parse XML. We can see that we got all the data for the 3 users. Now let's go into the directory and see if the files have been created for each user. Alright, so if we see, we have user1, user2 and user33.txt. So let's open any one. If we open user2, we can see that it has all the data for the user2 with the user ID 2, with the username sample user, and with the user status as suspended. So it's all good. And if we see the first one, we can verify that as well with the user name tutorialspedia and other details. So in this way, we have correctly iterated one by one on all of the elements from within this XML, and we have written that to the file. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to demonstrate another group action, which is the second one in this drop down, repeat until true. So for that purpose, in the real scenario, you will have some maybe more sensible logic if you are having complex scenarios. But for the demonstration purpose, what I will do is that I will keep iterating and just writing to some logs, and as soon as a specific condition gets true, then I will just exit from the group. For that purpose, let me just delete this write file activity as we don't need. Okay, so the group has gone. So what I will do is that I will just add the group again. by adding some conditions. So I will add a mapper. In the general activities, I'll choose a mapper and I will add a group. So the mapper is inside the group. Let me change the group action to repeat until true. And I will not do this index and condition now. Let me first do something in the mapper. Okay, so in the mapper, in the input editor, I'm going to click on plus and adding a new element of type integer. Sorry, let's name it as current dash mins. So from the current date time, we will pick the minutes, and let's change it to integer. And in the input, what we will do is that we will use the function. So if you go to functions and in the date time, if you see, we have plenty of functions, and there is a function to get the minutes from the current date time. So let's go there, and if you see here, get minutes from date time. So we will choose this function, and inside we will give current date time. So from the current date time, it will get the minutes. Okay, so it's double, not integer. So in this case, let me just make one change here. Instead of integer, I want to make it double. So let me change to decimal and it's double. Okay, so it will take the minutes from current date time. So I want to put just a condition that in the group index name, let's keep it I, and the condition is, okay, set has some problem. Let me first complete this. Okay, so the condition is current mins. So right now I will do it based on the time that I have in my machine. So if current minutes are equal to 45, if this condition gets true, then it should just exit. So it will repeat until true. So till the time this is not true, it will continue. But as soon as this condition gets true, it will just exit. So I'm just selecting a time, current minutes which are just near to the current, so that I may demonstrate it. So what I will do is that I will just write to the log. So from the general activities, I will choose log, write to log. So I'm going to add this, and in this I will write something as whatever the output of the mapper. Okay, and I will just end it. Before that, I want to add a sleep, because otherwise it will continue writing to the log. So I will just add a sleep so that it runs every maybe 30 seconds or 25 seconds. So I will add from the general activities sleep activity in the beginning, and I will configure this sleep activity to, let me go to the input. So I will add milliseconds. So 1000 milliseconds equal to 1 second. So let me add it to 25,000. So it's 25 seconds. Okay. So now if I run it, what it will do is that it will um, actually I don't need this parse and read as well now, because now the use case that I'm implementing is totally different. So I need to just remove these two as well. Sorry, let me delete. I'm going to delete this parse XML as well. So now I will add, just join this one. Okay, so now let me first validate the process to make sure nothing is wrong. Okay, it's fine. So let's uh, let me change this time to something else because 45 has already passed on my machine. So I'll make it 47. Okay, I'm gonna run it. Before that, let me open the console and clear it, as the output will be written to the console. So let's load and start the current one. Okay, so it will wait for a few seconds. After that, it will run to the map and log. So it will keep on running till the time reach to the time which is 47. Right now, time on my machine is 45. So it means that it will run for few iterations and then it will exit. So I'll pause the video and I'll show you the output from the console. So let me first, okay, so it has run once. So you can see that in the console, we can see that it has written 46. So right now the time is 9:46. So once it goes to 9:47, it will write and then it will exit. So it's running every 25 seconds. So in this case, it will be having multiple inputs to multiple logs being written. So once we will have multiple log entries, and once it reaches to the it validates this condition of current date time, current minutes to 47, it will exit. So I'm just pausing the video and I'll show you. All right, so we are just close to the last iteration because the time is just about to tick 9:47. Now you will see that after the next iteration, it will just go out of the group because the time is already 9:47. So once it goes out of the sleep and it goes to the log, it will just log and then it will exit. So you can see it has now exit. So if we go to the output in the console, we can see it has 46 three times and then it went to 47 and only once it has written to the log, and then since the condition was true, so it has just exited. So with this simple and just a basic type of use case, which is not maybe a real-time use case, I just try to explain you how you can use repeat until true. Now we want to see how we can use repeat on error until true. So repeat on error until true is going to be demonstrated with a simple case of writing to a file. So let me delete this sleep. Okay, so what I will do is that I will add a write file activity. Let me keep the logger first, as I will be logging something, and after the log I will just add a create file activity. And what I will do is that I will be general causing some error intentionally. For that purpose, in the create file, I will not choose this overwrite and I will not choose create non-existing directories. In the input, I will give some wrong path for the folder which does not exist so that it does not uh, successfully create the file. So once it will fail, we will be able to observe how it behaves with the condition that we threw in the group action. C:/test, and there is text xyz which does not exist slash abc.txt, so it does not exist. So this path should result in a failure. So in the log I will just do nothing, I will just write current date time. Okay, so after this what I will do is that here I will choose the action repeat an error until true and index name I, and the condition that I want to put is that I want to continue retrying to create the file for specific number of times. So I will choose $I is equal to 4. Sorry, 1 equal, not double. So if this condition gets true, then it should exit. Otherwise, it should continue. So it means that it will try at least 4 times, at least 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and once the condition gets 4, then it will go out of this group. So for this purpose, I will do with the debug. So I will just add a breakpoint and I'm gonna run this. Okay, so let's go to the next. So if you see here, the output for the create file, it's an error because it says that IO exception while trying to create the file. And in the normal scenario, what will happen that the process should get aborted. But since we have this repeat on error until true, so if we run again, you can see that again it has iterated. So now it's going to the log again and it's trying once more. So it's trying second time. Now it will continue again. It's now trying third time. And now it will be trying for the fourth time. And since now the condition is true, I is equal to 4, it should abort. So you can see that now it has aborted. So in this way, using this repeat on error until true, we can decide a retry mechanism that how many times we want to repeat. So it's not just retry mechanism, there can be some other implementations as well. For example, you can say that if there is an error, you want to repeat an error till some other condition gets true. Maybe you are having some additional condition inside, like you are checking something, and if that condition gets true, then you want to exit, and if that condition doesn't get true, you want to continue. In our case, what we did is that we are just doing on the index. So in this way, we are trying to make sure that we are running this group with this group action at least 4 times, rather exactly 4 times. So this is how you use this repeat and error until true group, and it's very useful when you are going to implement some retry mechanism. Alright, so that's it from this video tutorial. I tried to make it as simple as possible because the purpose of this tutorial was for the beginners and those who are at intermediate level and not much confident or not much sure about how to use these type of group actions in implementation of BW5 TIBCO processes. If you have any questions or if you have any ambiguities, you can write down in the comment section. I'll try my best to respond to your queries. And for any further readings, you can always refer to official TIBCO documentation, but you can also refer to the tutorials that I have written on tutorialspedia.com, where I have covered a lot of topics related to TIBCO, BW5, TIBCO 6, as well as other integration technologies. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as more videos are yet to come. Thank you.